Thank you for tuning in to Think Tech. Today's show, Next Big Thing, is all about giving people a place with great ideas, a place to share them with the world. I'm your host, Attila Seress, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today with us is Kurt Speas, and we're going to talk about EV. And EV is not some acronym for a fun kids game that involves, strange characters from outer space. It's actually electric vehicles, and I'm sure you've seen them everywhere. These Nissan Leafs, you've seen the Mitsubishis. You're probably going to see even a lot more of these on the road. And of course, you probably see these cars in the carpool lane while you're sitting in traffic going 0 miles an hour. And here to give us all the answers about this product, because I personally am interested in it, is Kurt, of course, and you're with Tony Nissan.
Tony
right?
Nissan, yeah.
And you're an EV specialist or consultant?
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm an EV, I specialize in selling the electric vehicles, Nissan Leaf right now, and we're going to expand. So, yeah.
Well, and I should probably tell you my experience as to why you're sitting here today.
Okay.
It's because, I park at a public lot here in downtown. And I come in week by week to do these shows, and every time I would come back to my car, it looked like a Nissan Leaf parking lot.
Right.
It's like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So I asked the
excuse me.
So I asked the parking attendant, what's the deal? And she says, oh yeah, they park here for free. I said, no way. She brings out a big stack of tickets like this, saying, oh yeah, these are all the tickets from. $30, $40 a day. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So I said, I got to find out more about this. So I called you to figure out what is the deal. And and now, of course, I see them everywhere. It's like, when you look for it, you see them everywhere. It's kind of like, it reminds me of back in California maybe 10, 15 years ago when you'd be sitting at a stoplight and there'd be 4 Hummers, one on every corner because they had some fancy subsidy.
Subsidies, and the Hummers of all things,
Well,
Those
yeah, exactly.
Funny,
Just the opposite.
Funny how times have changed, huh?
Yeah, now it's just the opposite, right?
Yeah. Well, that parking, the state, I was surprised at how much that really affects sales. It's not like a deal maker, but once you tell people that you have free airport parking, you have free zipper lane, and a lot of people commute, and if you can use that zipper lane, that's a huge deal if you're stuck in traffic for an hour every day. So the zipper lane and the free metered parking, the Blaisdell, all these state municipalities are free. And Senator Gabbard, who I sold him a Leaf, he is in charge of the project of the legislation, and State Representative Mark Takai bought his Leaf from us as well. But they both are in charge of legislation, and they've extended that till 2020. So it's not a short-term thing anymore. It was a year, and then they bumped it up till 2020.
What is that legislation?
It's every place with 100 stalls or more, you're required to have electric vehicle parking. That would be 1%, so it's like 1 stall. So Ala-Moana has several, upstairs and downstairs. And like Kmart has, the new Walmarts, the Super Walmart in Kapolei, I believe it's Walmart, right? The one down in there?
Yeah, how about
that one has
Costco?
EV stations. Costco, they're working on it. They did it in Denver years ago, and they said nobody used them, but years ago they weren't electric vehicles. And the Nissan Leaf's actually the first mass-produced EV ever.
Yeah, it was the World Car of the Year in 2011. Right?
It certainly was, and they just sold their 100,000th car. So
whoa.
Yeah, so they've sold quite a few worldwide. We were actually the 4th largest selling dealer last year in the country. So Hawaii is really a hotbed for it. In conjunction with photovoltaic and electric vehicles, pretty much the sun charges their car. So even the minimal amount of electricity, even though our rates are high here, it's still minimal compared to gas prices.
Sure.
So it's pennies on the dollar. And so that combined with the car's maintenance. I mean, it's one thing that people don't realize is there's very little maintenance on an electric vehicle.
Well, why is that?
Well, it's a rotating assembly. So you don't have a constant explosion inside the motor, a controlled explosion. So there's no need for oil. There's no oil in the car.
Really?
No oil.
Wow.
Yeah. So
not even a little bit like vegetable oil or something?
No. They have bearing lube.
Oh, wow.
But that's not needed for service.
Yeah,
now, the electric motor,
fixed. Yeah, it's pressed in there.
Now, generally, an electric motor will have brushes, and these brushes will clean off by the bearings and stuff like that, and eventually you have to change these brushes. So the Leaf was made; it's a brushless motor. So you don't even have to do that. So
Wow.
those are very, very, and the car has not had one mechanical recall in 3 years. So every car, I mean, if you're familiar with recalls, our gas cars have recalls all the time. Toyota is known for it nowadays.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
But the Leaf has had none. They've had one recall for an airbag sensor light, and that's it. An airbag sensor, rather.
Now, is that because, like, I know, for example, I'm going to bring up a competitor, Tesla.
Yeah.
Their big deal is, like, we got 12 moving parts in this whole car.
Well, they're basically electric vehicles are
Same
electric
thing.
vehicles.
Yeah.
We actually have a drive shaft. There's no transmission in the car, so there's no transmission lube. No need to service a transmission because there's not one. Yeah, Tesla's the same thing, except they don't have really drive shafts. The motors are on the wheels. And a couple of my customers bought those, and I had a chance to drive them. It's an extraordinary car. It's amazing.
They cost a little bit more. I mean, I went to the
Slightly.
Nissan website here, and it shows what 21,300 on
That'd
there.
be after the tax credit.
Yeah. Well, but Tesla starts at what, 60?
125 now. Well, the long range one's 125. They start at like 70 for the short range ones.
So you get a whole fleet of Leafs for that price.
You could. But what's nice about having Tesla in the market is that they bring cutting edge technology. The bad part is that when you're on cutting edge technology, it's cutting edge. You know, Nissan really wanted something that's not going to be a hassle from the beginning, because if you fall on your face in the beginning and you have a lot of problems, this is something all new, people will just stay away in droves. You know, so it had to be durable, and it had to be, you know, a solid car that people can use. It's actually not a micro car like a lot of these electric cars are. The EPA classifies it as a mid-sized vehicle, so it's bigger than a Sentra. It's a hatchback style, so the cargo capacity is enormous just because there's no gas tank. You have that deep well in the back, and the batteries are on the floor, so you have a low center of gravity and everything.
Probably keeps the car really stable too, to have all that
It's
weight
very
down there.
stable. That's the one thing that sells a car. People initially, they figure, I'll go in and check it out because I don't have to spend money on gas. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. And then they get in, they drive it, and it's like, wow, it drives way better than any small car because there's no vibration from a motor. There's no exhaust noise. You don't have transmission shifting. It's just like floating on a carpet. But because electric motors have all their torque at 0 RPM, the acceleration's astounding. I mean, it's like a V6. It just takes off. And the Tesla has a 4-time bigger motor, so you can imagine.
It's
They
faster
just
than
raced the
Porsche.
Tesla against a Corvette, and the Tesla won.
Oh,
a new Corvette.
And they did it against, I think, a Porsche and a
Yeah,
Ferrari.
yeah.
I always saw it on Top Gear.
Instant torque.
Yeah.
It's an amazing
Right
car.
there.
And so you can take it to any level you want to. You know, Nissan wanted to have something that everybody could afford, you know, and then they could drive electric and make the transition easy. You know, and a lot of people here, it's a lot easier to make the transition because a lot of people don't drive over 35 miles a day. So if you plug it in the wall, like a regular plug-in that it comes with, you don't have to install a charging station. It'll charge up that amount overnight. So, you know, it's really not that difficult to go electric.
Now, with charging station, I think I've seen them at Home Depot. How does that work?
They sell them at Home Depot. You can have your electrician install them. They'll get an online permit. I have an electrician we use specifically. He's done hundreds of these, and those are very easy to install. And you can either get a hardwire one, or you can get one that plugs right into a 220 outlet.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
So it'll the voltage is 240, but it'll work off of 220. But what's nice about that is that, you know, you don't have a lot of hassle now. The state is so pro-electric, you can actually get the permits online. You know, it's not like some issue. You know, they try to expedite that stuff, it seems.
It's like
So very
installing
simple.
a jacuzzi, right? Simple.
I don't know. I've never installed one.
Well, jacuzzis you 220. You put it at
It's
220.
basically, yeah, it's like your dryer. Yeah.
And what, that charges it twice as fast?
That'll charge the car. If you plug it in the wall from 0 to 100%, it's about 21 hours. So if you drive 30% of that, you can charge it up overnight. If you drive more than that, you should get a level 2 charging station. And then now the 2013 Leaf, it charges twice as fast as last year.
Oh.
So there's a base model that charges the same as last year, and then any model above that, it charges from 0 to full in about 3.5 to 4 hours. So if you drive 50 miles a day, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know. So it's no time. You can plug it in, get ready, and go out again at night.
And if you have solar panels on your roof,
It's pretty much, if you've zeroed out, yeah. And a lot of people, now, most of my customers that have PV have already planned to buy an EV. So they call me up to see what the numbers are, how many panels they got to put, and all those things. And so, you know, it's important that you really know who your customer is and the wattage of panels and, you know, how much they produce. And, you know, and a lot of people, those calls are for future sales down the road when they finish putting in their PV system. So yeah, it's a process for some people, but once they drive it, 93% of the people said they'll buy another one. And in the industry, that's a huge, huge number.
what's how long are they expected to last?
Well, you have an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on the battery.
Wow.
An electric motor will outlast a gas engine at least 3 or 4 times over. There's electric motors at Pearl Harbor that have been running for 50 years nonstop. I was told that by a guy who worked at Pearl Harbor.
Well, but this is, you know, I have like box fans in my house. And
It's a little different motor.
2 years down the line.
A little different motor.
It's kind of doing this.
That's the one you build in class.
Yeah.
That's the one they have you build in class. Those box motor. Yeah, no. These things are high capacity and they're heavy duty industrial motors. They're not like something you'd get in one of those little hats that's got the fan on it. You know what I mean? It's not like that.
So something like this could potentially last you the rest of your life, really.
Motor-wise it could, battery-wise it can't.
So what's battery life going to be in 8 years? That's the thing. 8
Well,
years
in
from
8
now,
years,
batteries could be 10 times the charge. And
a battery, well, they've got a lot of stuff in the works right now for that. The way people are doing it now is most people are leasing, because let's say your gas bill is $250 a month. That's generally what your payment is with some down payment on a lease. So, you know, if you go do that, then you're driving for free because you've been paying $250 a month. But the real savings comes in your maintenance, because if you're driving an old car, it's getting paying $250 a month on gas, you're looking for a maintenance problem. So transmission goes out, this goes out. You're driving a brand new car for what a used one, cheaper than a used car. You're driving it for zero.
yeah, that's the other thing. I didn't bring it up yet, but on the Wall Street Journal, maybe this was about 6 months ago, they went through how different tax incentives and people who are driving expeditions and all these larger vehicles found out that they could drive a Leaf for free.
Exactly.
When you kind of did all the math.
Yeah. Well, I've had companies buy the car as well. Like Minahoney Waters bought 3 from me, and they're buying 2 more for Kauai, and they're going to replace them with the electric van that we discussed that's coming out.
Well, when you say buy, are they buying or are they leasing?
They're leasing. Well, I say buy, but you know, to me, it's all the same. But
well,
yeah, it's a
makes
lease.
sense, yeah.
They're leasing them. The lease payments are low. They put 0 down. But see, they were making sales calls and deliveries in these big trucks, and the gas expense is killing them. You know what I mean? So when you go to this, when they put PV on their Halava warehouse and they put charging stations in, it made no sense, because sometimes they'll deliver 8 bottles of water and they're basically doing sales calls, you know, remote sales calls. So when you're doing that in a 1-ton truck or something, I mean, I don't know how much gas that is, but it's an enormous amount, you know. And they when they did their Halava warehouse in PV, they put these nice big electric vehicle charging stations in there. They did it right when they put the PV in. They had these nice, they got 4 of them right there. So it's, you know, they're really getting on board, and it's economically viable for companies to do that. And Federal Express has expressed a lot of interest in the NV200E. And I think a lot of businesses here that do a lot of deliveries and stuff, it's going to be a big deal.
You're going to need it. Yeah, I want to talk about the NV and the EV200s.
Sure.
But we have to go to a break here real quick.
Cool.
So those of you tuned in, thanks for watching Next Big Thing. I'm your host, Attila Seress. And with us in the studio is Kurt Speas. He's the EV specialist for Tony Nissan. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
We're back, we're live, and you're watching Think Tech Friday. On our series, Next Big Thing, I try to give people with great ideas a place to share them with the world. So, of course, I'm your host, Attila Seress. With us in the studio is Kurt Speas. He's the EV specialist for Tony Nissan. EV, of course, stands for electric vehicle. And now we're going to get into his personal life. Just kidding.
Personal life?
Just kidding. We don't want to talk
It's
about
boring.
that.
I work all the time.
Yeah, well, you know what that means? You're dedicated to a good cause, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So tell me about Hitachi. What's the deal with Hitachi?
Yeah, just came from an EV conference in Maui, and they're putting in a lot of these quick charge stations. Now those will charge a Leaf up from 0 to 80% in about 25 minutes.
Whoa.
And they're 440 volts. But the reason they have the study going there is because they want to get off nuclear power since the tsunami and they have the leakage and all those things. Now Nissan, the Nissan Leaf is bilinear, which means it can send power and receive it. So what they're doing is if they have so many cars in a grid, they want to find out in Japan how many Leafs can they draw from in case power goes down. So if you plug the car in, when the tsunami hit, Nissan gave people these packages that own Leafs, and they could go charge their car up someplace that had power and come back and it would run their home for like 2 days.
Yeah.
That's the battery capacity.
I heard about that.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
wanted one badly.
Right.
That would be great.
Well, all it is a big generator, really. You know.
Yeah.
And so they're studying that now. And actually, the Maui customers, if you buy a Leaf with a quick charge port, Hitachi's giving them an extra $3,000 to participate in the study.
Not on Oahu, though.
No, just in Maui. Yeah.
Shoot.
Well,
Almost
that's
worth
fine.
it to move there.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You know, it's interesting how the electric vehicles are, you know, intertwining into your infrastructure. You know, it's not just like a cell phone. You know, it's becoming an integral part of your infrastructure. And Hawaiian Electric does a lot of studies on EV customers and things of that nature. You know, so. And of course, we have Leaf events at our dealership for all our Leaf customers, and whoever wants to come. And again, you know, Senator Gabbard spoke at it once, Mark Takai spoke several times, and so it's good to keep close with legislation. And they call us up when they have questions, and then you know, the Department of Business Development. I mean, they stay in contact with us, so it's kind of cool working close with the state to try to mold new legislation to try to promote the product. So it's interesting sort of thing, yeah.
Well, and this is just one of many products coming down the line. I read about a year ago, the state of New York got a deal from Nissan to do the EV200s, which are like those small passenger vans. And now I'm starting to see what the NV200s. I'm starting to see them on the road now.
Yeah.
Same van, but
Same van.
that's awesome. See, what I've always wanted, and I can't figure this out. No one can give me the answer. Maybe you can. Why is there no such thing as either a hybrid or an electric minivan?
Well, it's economics. It's very expensive to put together a hybrid. It's really expensive. So, like when you see them at the dealership, they're probably $3,000 to $5,000 more than that same model that's not a hybrid. So the gas and, you know, am I saving money? It doesn't really work. You know, by the time you save $5,000 in gas, the car's out of warranty. So it really doesn't work with an all-electric vehicle. It makes sense because you're starting immediately from a car that's actually less. You know, and as time goes on, production costs will come down. The misconception is that the cars are really expensive. And a Leaf starts at about $29,800 before your tax credit. And it's about $21,600, you know, like the website says, plus your destination fee after it. So that's the price of a loaded Sentra. And so that, you know, it makes perfect sense.
Well, and also you have, I mean, the reason I was excited about the EV200s is that's kind of like your first electric, I mean, I guess you could almost call it a family van, really.
Yeah, it's going to be a dual-purpose van. It's going to be cargo, and it's going to be passenger. The initial ones are probably going to be cargo. And that's a big deal in the marketplace for sure. The marketplace, as far as commercial vans and stuff go, there was a Ford Transit Connect, which was popular, but the NV200E is going to be longer range, and of course it's going to be just a Leaf.
But it's also made by Nissan from the factory, right?
The thing about Nissan, when they got into this, they invested $3 billion into it.
Whoa.
They build their own electric motors. They don't subsidize that out, which would be cheaper. They build their own electric motors. I've seen the process. It's actually, you could plug that plant in anywhere, and it runs very well. They got it very efficient and very down pat before they moved it to the mainland. It went from Japan to Tennessee last year in 2013. So, which dropped our production cost by about $6,000. Yeah, so it was pretty big. But they build their own electric motors. They build their own inverters. And an inverter takes a direct current from the battery and turns it into alternating current, so you can accelerate and decelerate. So that's an integral part of an electric car. You need that inverter to do that. But and they build pretty much everything on the car. And if you look at a truck or something like that from General Motors, a lot of it's Canadian built. Taiwan, switches and to the lowest bidder. And they wanted to be in control of everything on it because it was so important that the product be durable. Because you invest $3 billion, you don't want something to fall on its face. That's a company killer.
Well, and that's the thing. Going back to what you said about the Transit Connect, that was a van that they made in Turkey. They brought it over here in the U.S. They outsourced an electric something to some third party, and they made a few thousand of these vans,
something like that,
and that was it. I mean, that's kind of a piss poor effort. I think what Nissan's doing is much smarter.
Yeah, and that's strange for Ford because they generally do all their things in house, but because it was so cheap to get electric motor here and this there, but the problem is they had, you're gonna have quality issues when you start cobbling something together. It's like when you take, Toyota has a RAV4 EV with a Tesla motor in it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
They sell in California. It's about $50,000, but the problem is when you cobble a gas car together that was supposed to be gas, and you try to put an electric motor here and batteries where they don't belong, your balance is off. That's what happened with the Ford Focus Electric. That there's no room in the back. There's very little room in the back seat and they have a vanity cover over the batteries. It's just not made to be electric. It's Ford Focus. So you can take any car and do that. But you need to take a car and build it from the ground up, because then you have balance. Because inherently an electric car, if you build it from the ground up, has excellent handling because your batteries are in the floor, and everything's where it's supposed to be, and you have much more space inside. It's like a huge difference, So, Nissan didn't want to put together a car like Mitsubishi and all these other guys, which was an existing gas car. They wanted something from the ground up, and then they can put different product on they can use that platform to build different product.
Well, I think you're right. Mitsubishi did it right. They took a golf cart,
Yeah.
which was already electric,
Yeah.
and they just put doors on it.
Yeah, well, that car was a gas car in someplace. Yeah,
Really?
someplace in the world, yeah. But, I like the idea that everybody's trying it. I just think Nissan went all in. They said, if we're going to do it, we should go all the way. And they just pretty much skipped the hybrid. CAFE requirements made them build an Altima, which they only sold in 7 states. But now they're making a Pathfinder hybrid and things of that nature. But they're really kind of on the electric. They believe that's going to be the wave. And the infrastructure's already there because every house has electricity. And so they've been building electric cars since the 1800s. I mean, Thomas Edison made the first EV charger.
Well, you know who was the first electric car in general, right?
I know there's a Baker Electric.
Porsche.
Oh, that's right. They found that.
1907.
They just found it.
Yeah, it was the original Porsche.
Yeah.
But it was Porsche was originally the poor man's cheap car.
Right.
And they figured that the cost of coal was so cheap that no one would possibly want to use an electric vehicle.
Well, only rich people had electricity in their houses.
Oh.
But they actually had Baker Electrics back in the 1800s, late 1800s. Jay Leno owns 2 of them.
Oh,
they're all electric. They look like phone booths, and they're called country cars. So they're glass, and so they have a tiller, and then you steer it with the tiller, kind of, and you drive through the countryside. but deer would just walk right up to it because there's no noise. You know, they're looking inside like what it is. But Thomas Edison built the charging station for that. So that'll tell you that, yeah, how old those are. But they've been around a long time, but they marketed them to rich people because only rich people, like doctors' wives, and only rich people had electricity back then. Everybody was running coal, and they had coal stores in their house, and that's what they would use. But nobody had like flowing electricity. No mass amount of people have flowing electricity. So that's why it died.
Well, one of the other things though is, even though you drive an electric car, that electricity's got to come from somewhere. And
but it's a lot cleaner than if you were just to buy it at the pump.
Well, one thing I heard about the Prius in particular is that the amount of parts that it needs and the complexity of everything that's involved and the different, like they have to bring resources from all over the planet, rare earth metals to do the batteries and, something else for something else.
They still use nickel cadmium instead of lithium ion,
And because of all that, the footprint of the vehicle itself was like bigger than a Hummer, is what I remember reading. So it sounds to me like that's not.
I don't know. You read all this stuff, and I've read stuff that's not necessarily true, but a hybrid is definitely a way more moving parts. You have a restart system. It stalls, but it basically feels like it dies when you stop. It doesn't die, but it goes to electric, and so when you have that transition, it makes the car so complicated. Now, they've been very dependable. The car's been very good. So they've done a really good job with it. But that's just the stepping stone to get to the next step, And then down the road, you'll see, hydrogen seems to be the next thing. But they just can't build a hydrogen fuel cell that doesn't leak because the hydrogen molecules are so small. They get out of anything.
Yeah.
So...
Your car has no charge when you come out in the morning.
Right, but it's a great idea. So as time goes on, that's one of the things that you won't even have to charge the car up.
Well, I believe I saw this maybe 20 years ago in Israel. They had these fuel swapping stations, and then a few months ago I went to Tesla's website and they said we can swap out the battery pack in this car before. Faster than you can fill up an Audi's gas tank.
True. Yeah.
And if you go to any, if you want to go to any kids' RC park where they have little radio control things, that's exactly what they do. They pop out the battery pack, slap in a new one, keep on racing.
I think those things would be viable, but I think the real key is getting a solid battery that'll go 300 to 500 miles. And charge in about 30 minutes. Now you're getting a battery now you're getting a car now that'll do 100 miles in the Leaf that's affordable, and you can charge a car in about to 80% in about 25 to 30 minutes. So when you get to the point where you can dissipate the heat without degrading the battery by charging it fast, and these are all things that I'm sure they're working on. And then when you get to a range of 300 to 500 miles, that's a range of a regular car. And then of course the infrastructure comes into play after that. What do you do with that car? Because they just completed a cross-country trip with a Tesla. Tesla has a national charging network, and this guy, and it wasn't even a Tesla-sponsored thing, it's just a guy and his daughter. And he took his Tesla and he made it. So when you have those things in place, and by the way, charging stations are standardized by the government. So once all electric vehicles, you'll see more come onto the market as they get longer range. In Hawaii, they sell like crazy. We sell, because we don't drive 300 miles to grandma's house.
No.
30 miles a day is kind of a norm.
But you couldn't take a Leaf from like LA to Vegas.
No, well, actually, they do have from LA to Vegas. They have a charging network.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
So
quick charge stations.
You kind of stop and charge.
Well, the
for a
GPS
couple
on the
hours?
Leaf will tell you exactly where the nearest charging station is. So you'll go to the next one. There's an app for your phone, and it'll tell you the rate of charge on your phone, and then you can even turn the air conditioning on and off from your phone. And so you're very in touch with your car. And so as the charging network gets bigger, and Nissan has been really, really instrumental in spreading these quick charge stations around. they're, and these are like these Tesla stations. But Nissan has the Chadmill, which charges faster. And so that's the 440 volt station, and those will get it pretty quick.
Well, how does your car communicate, or how can you turn on the AC? Because I remember seeing a commercial about that, like at Christmas time, and I was like, I want it. My wife's like, settle down.
Yeah.
But how does it communicate? Does it have some sort of 3G?
It's 3G, and then what happens is that because there are no belts, the AC is run by an electric motor.
Yeah, it's all DC.
So you can just turn it on. So it's just like a remote control your air conditioner. You know what I mean? So when you hit that, it'll turn it on.
Well, plus, when you get, I don't know, I'll feed this in there. When you get to an all-electric system, it's not a mechanical air conditioning unit. So when I turn on the AC on my car, all of a sudden my power is going down, my gas mileage is going down.
Well, it'll use more power.
It'll use more power, but the performance is still there.
The performance is still there.
Yeah.
You don't feel a lag in power because that motor has nothing to do with your main your main drive motor. But it does affect your range because that's the only accessory that runs off your track battery, your main big battery. It has a regular 12-volt battery like a car, so it's got a step-down alternator that runs off the rotating assembly of the electric motor, and it's like a regular alternator, and it charges up the 12-volt battery, and that runs your accessories, your lights, and all that stuff.
Like your car stereo, that kind of thing?
So turn off your stereo and give you more range.
So it won't. Okay, wow. Oh, so I didn't know that. So you have two DC systems. It's not like one big battery pack and the whole.
That runs everything. The one
It's
big
not like your
battery.
iPad.
No. So it's like the track battery itself, which is in the floor of the car. That'll run your air conditioner, and that'll also run
Like your wheels, right?
your drive. So it'll run your big electric motor. The rest of the stuff you definitely want to run on an alternator because you don't want that stuff sucking range and all that stuff. And even though it wouldn't suck a lot of range, at night with your lights on, it's running low, I mean, it affects it. So you definitely want a 12-volt battery like a regular car. You want that. It's better.
All right, I want to talk about that and a couple of other things. So we're going to cut to a quick break.
Okay.
I'm your host, Attila Seress. With us today is Kurt Speas. He's the EV specialist for Tony Nissan. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after.
We want to thank our underwriters. Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
We're mad.
We're back, we're live, and thanks for tuning in to Next Big Thing, where we give people with great ideas a chance to share them with the world. With us today is Kurt Speas. He's the EV specialist for Tony Nissan, and we're talking about the Nissan Leaf and all things electric when it comes to vehicles. And I have a real affinity for the topic, so I'm just asking him lots of questions. So if anyone's interested in getting a Leaf and you've been directed to this video because someone's asked every question that could ever come up about the Nissan, hopefully this is helpful.
This is a normal customer to me.
Oh, okay, great, perfect. So we were talking about, I know on the mainland everyone's all nuts about the Volt, and I'm a Nissan person, so I really like Nissan, but some people seem to like this Chevy Volt thing where you can fit only 4 people in a car, and the car is microscopic in terms of size, and you only get 15 miles. Come on.
It's 30. It's about 35 miles on the battery.
Oh, it's 35.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
but again, they had to admit that the electric motor the gas motor does drive the drive wheels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had to admit that, and they were saying that it charged up the battery so that it could run on electric, continuously. It's basically so complicated that it makes it not dependable in the long run. But also, from what I read, they're losing money on it. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's one of those things. It could be a PR thing, and they're kind of half getting off gas and saying, "Oh no, you still need to use gas." Because you remember they built the EV1, and you remember what happened to that.
Yeah, I remember seeing them on the road. I think I actually saw one on the road recently. Maybe it was like saved from but I heard they all got crushed, and there's a Netflix.
Most of them. The Peterson Auto Museum in California has one, but it's dismantled.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
And
What
I saw one on
happened?
a video that the lady who actually was the head of the project at GM was driving at some EV car show. And so there's at least one that I saw that's still running. But the idea was fantastic. I mean, the car had about 90 miles of range. But
Perfect.
It had all this high-tech stuff, which General Motors is in possession of in their R&D warehouse, which is top secret. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No.
But the building itself is enormous. It's unbelievable. They got vaults in there, and it's crazy. But anyway, they had a magnetic charging paddle. It wasn't even a plug-in. That's
What?
high-tech stuff, man. And no contact points. It was a magnetic paddle. You slide it in.
Kind of like your Sonicare. You stick it in there.
Exactly like that. And yeah, and it was unbelievable. And it did 0 to 60 in 8 seconds. It was fast. And they leased it out to a bunch of celebrities, and they were ready to go. And of course, they did a movie about it. Who Killed the Electric Car, and it was basically they were lobbied. What the movie states is they were lobbied by Chevron to not build it, and so they sold the rights to the nickel cadmium battery, which was the latest thing at the time in '91, to Chevron, and that ended up being the end of it. So when their leases were up, they didn't sell the cars; they leased them. They came to people's houses with flatbeds. Yeah. Normally when you turn a lease and you bring it back to the dealer, you do the paperwork and turn it in. They came to the people's houses with flatbeds. So that's how much pushback you've
squished
had.
them, right?
Yeah, well actually, unfortunately, they sold it to a lot of actors and filmmakers who made a film about it. So it gave them a black eye, So, and they followed the cars out to the desert, and I believe it was in Arizona. And when they came back out, the flatbed truck was just full of crushed EV1s. They were all smashed. And people were upset. I mean, people protesting, actors, And, it's the sort of thing where it exposed where money goes, then goes the product. And everybody loved it. Everybody loved their car. They absolutely loved it. They drove it everywhere. It had enough range at the time to go anywhere, which is about the same range as a Leaf now. So you can imagine the technology, where would it be now?
Yeah, if we had been 15
Where would
years
it be
ago.
now? And so, but that film actually exposed a lot of things. And then they have a new movie, The Revenge of the Electric Car. And it's got the Leaf and the Tesla and all these cars that are, coming out. And then the Volt, they're trying to redeem themselves. But, it's one of the things where, the people actually get involved. That's what's exciting about it. The people actually get involved. And when we have these Leaf events, I mean, the people are like, I don't want to say zealots, but they're very enthusiastic, and I've owned a lot of classic cars and stuff like that and hot rods, and they're much more enthusiastic about their cars than like classic car guys. It's unbelievable.
Well, I'm starting to see, when I was looking for pictures, to put on a little background here.
Yeah.
I saw some really cool pictures of people lowered their Leafs and put on like ground effects.
Yeah, actually,
'Cause they're
Nissan has a
fast.
factory Nismo Leaf, a race car.
Really?
Oh yeah, and then they've got a 3-wheel electric. I think they call that the Batwing or something. It seats one in the front and 2 people in the back. So they're experimenting with stuff, but they really had the Infinity's got a nice, which is Nissan, beautiful looking 2-door sport coupe and S-Flow. So they got all these design projects. going on and all these prototypes. And so they're committed, you know, I mean, they're not going to back away from it. And so right now the strategy is to build things on the Leaf platform that are going to be big sellers in the marketplace.
Well, let's talk about the EV200 then, because
Okay.
is that built based on the Leaf stuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Leaf chassis, Leaf motor.
Really? So it's the same car?
It's the same
different
car,
top.
but it's going to have more battery capacity because of the van. It's supposed to have about 150 miles of range because, you know, in town, like when you're in traffic, you get longer range than if you're on the freeway. It's the exact opposite of a gas car. So what will happen is most of the time, Federal Express, UPS, all these guys, they're in town and Honolulu deliveries. They don't even need to recharge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so but now they're using Leafs right now in New York City as taxis. They sold them to the taxi drivers for $1 to do the experiment. Now they can't make the airport runs; they're too far. But what they do, they make more money with the cabs themselves because of the there's hardly any maintenance and no gas. And so they have the Nissan put in these quick charge stations in Manhattan, and they'll just charge them up in 25 minutes. They're back out on the road, and they normally take their break that time anyway. You know, so they're out there back and forth, and people will pay a premium to ride in those cars versus a regular gas one.
And well, I mean, so you say no service. What does that mean?
Well, it's not no service. You rotate the tires.
Okay.
You do a battery inspection once a year. The first 2 years are free, but eventually you do battery inspections, and then of
Is
course
that like
you
a test? Like you plug it in?
They plug it into a computer, and it's a 48 pack battery, and it goes through each battery pack and reads the voltage because the voltage has to be uniform.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they do that once a year.
You could almost do that at home. Rotate your tires and plug
You
it
do
in.
a Jiffy Lube and keep the receipt. Yeah, and then
Wow. And how much does that usually cost? About?
$20 a tire rotation, and then the battery inspection is $100 after the first 2 years.
Oh, but you'll spend more than that on nonsense for a
Well,
normal,
if you
normal
change your
car.
oil 3 times a year, and then
Yeah.
you'd have to do transmission service every 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, depends on how much you drive. I mean, you're talking about belts, tune-ups, all those things. I think we figured it out on a regular, say versus a Camry. It would, not a Camry, an Accord. It would save you, under the 8-year warranty period, save you about over $5,000 in just regular maintenance.
Plus, you got moving parts.
Yeah.
They break.
Yeah, well, it's just, I mean, it's common sense that it's got half the moving parts of a regular car. So, you know, when you have half the moving parts of a regular car, common sense would dictate that, you know.
Yeah, I
it's under
think,
brake.
what was it? The average car had something like 20,000 moving parts. And
I don't know.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they just told us it was half the moving parts, and you know, and it seems to be less, to tell you the truth, because you don't have a computer to control exhaust. You don't have an emissions computer. You don't have a muffler system. You don't have a catalytic converter. You don't have a fuel management system. There's no air filter, oil filter, fuel filter. I mean, it seems to be much less than half, because everything's solid state. You know, I mean, it's not like it's complicated. You know,
Just wheels and brakes and.
yeah. I mean, you have your normal wipers and wheels and brakes and your normal battery. You know, those you have to replace like a regular car. But.
Are people souping these things up?
Oh, I've been trying to figure out how.
Because I know, like, for instance, on the Priuses, people were hacking the computers so they could run
I've heard
on
of it.
all electric. Yeah.
I've heard it, but they there's a lot more power in that motor. They have to regulate it with a computer, because if you don't have that inverter and you just take off and floor it, it'll just shred the tires right off. I mean, it's all torque. You know,
Really?
yeah. That's why electric motors are used in the industry, because I mean they're all torque at 0 RPM. So right when they turn 1 revolution, boom, it's got all its torque. That's why the acceleration seems much faster than it is, because when you jump on the freeway, it's like, holy mackerel, you know, it'll put you back in the seat, and that's a really nice driving experience, because you don't have to worry about passing people. Because the whole purpose of a transmission, it kicks down, it revs up the motor.
Right.
And then it produces more power, and you can take off, and it multiplies the gears. So you have to do all that to accelerate faster. In this car, you don't. You just hit the accelerator and ask the battery for more power, and that's it.
And plus, you have that weight. You have that.
Very low center of gravity, because of the way they designed the battery pack. When you take corners, you don't need some sophisticated suspension to make it corner flat. You know, and cornering flat is like a big thing in racing and everything else. So when you have that low center of gravity and you're taking a corner, it feels much more sure-footed than a regular Sentra or something like that. Yeah.
And it would
Or
be
Corolla or something.
how fast does it get 0 to 60?
0 to 60 is only like about 9 seconds,
That's
but it does
pretty
0 to
fast.
50 because you only have about 107 horsepower. But see, by the time you get up to freeway speed, I mean, it's like that. But it does 0 to 50 as fast as a V6 Maxima, which has 290 horsepower.
Oh, so it's
So 0 to 50 is really, but by the time you get to 50, 60 is not much farther away, you know. And even when you pass on the freeway, you still have all your torque. So if you want to pass somebody that's doing 60, it'll just go right around them. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, I noticed some of these cars, they really have that really good high-end torque also. So I think with electric you get that also, right? So you can go from 60 to 80 just as quickly.
Yeah, and they limit the speed to 90, and that's basically so, you know, if you're driving at 90 or plus, the battery drains really fast. You know, anything over 65, it drains considerably faster.
I just have
So.
wind
Yeah.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
there's that thing called resistance, right?
Yeah. So, but in general, you know, those for us in Hawaii, you know, rarely is somebody drive sustained at 65 miles an hour for more than 10 miles. You know, it's really doesn't really happen that often. You know, but you know, people find that the power's way more than what they thought it would be. You know, and that's because of the torque.
And so when can I get the EV200? That's the one.
It's supposed to come out the first quarter of next year. They've released
Wow.
it in Europe. So that's what Nissan will do. They'll release it in a smaller market. If there are any bugs, they hammer them out, and then they bring it to the big markets like the United States.
And are we looking at any real competition coming up from Toyota or GM?
Well, they're trying. They're
Ford.
converting gas cars right now.
Why would they do that? Why not just build it
It's
from the ground
cheaper.
up?
It's cheaper if they can get the conversion over, because people convert. I saw a guy convert his Porsche Spyder to electric in his garage. It was on a movie once, and you know, and it's not that complicated. But you know, if you build a platform where you can make other cars, it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference, and Nissan's committed to that. And so now when they need to build, say, a truck, which I'm hoping they'll come out with a small truck, because it's all torque. So and that's what trucks need. So if you get a battery that can handle that and make an efficient range, I mean, you couldn't keep it. You couldn't build them fast enough. You know, small trucks are real popular because you can use them. But you know, the main thing is that you got to get your batteries set to where they can handle that sort of torque load and still have a 300-mile range and all that. And I'm talking about for the mainland market.
Well, if you get a truck and it's twice as long, could you theoretically put twice as many batteries
Well,
in there?
that's the whole thing with the NV200E. You can put more batteries in it.
Oh.
It's the same platform, but it's bigger, so you can put more batteries in the floor and the sides, wherever you need.
You know, I'm going to put this out there because it's kind of fun. I heard about fabric batteries. I saw this on a TV show.
Oh, yeah.
You seen that?
Yeah. Did you see the spray batteries, too?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I've heard the spray solar material also.
You spray it and you just charge it by just sticking some sort of diode in there.
What these guys were doing is they went to these old countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they found these old ladies, you know, making things in the looms in the traditional pattern of weaving.
Yeah.
And then they infused them with carbon nanotubes, and they put an insulator between the two, right? So they could activate it. And then obviously the idea is that they can take this fabric battery and put it in unmanned aerial drones, and now you have electric powered drones, right, with very low weight. And the hope is that we could also put this in our cars so that our seats and our door panels and everything, all that weight is removed.
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool stuff. So maybe that'll be the future. But I wish we had more time to talk, and I think I'm going to have to come see you at the
Thanks for having
dealer.
me. Yeah, come on down.
But thank you so much,
All right,
Kurt.
thanks for having me. I appreciate
right.
it. Yeah.
Well,
It's been cool.
Well, hopefully this has been a good experience for you.
Yeah, it has.
And for those customers of Kurt watching, thanks for tuning in to Think Tech Friday, and everyone else, of course. Tune in next Friday. We're going to have some other great shows, and of course, you can always check out thinktechhawaii.com. See our 20+ shows per week. We have lots of interesting topics, and thank you, of course, to Ian. Dan and Jay and all the people who make Think Tech possible. I'm your host, Attila Seress, and stay tuned next time. We're going to do some more stuff on Next Big Thing. Aloha.